In the endless, silent expanse of the cosmos, absence can speak louder than any sound. Out in the far-flung outer rim colonies, humanity had mastered this silent language, learning to navigate the quiet voids between stars, just as their ancestors once charted the seas. But on this day, that profound silence was about to be shattered in a way no one could ever have predicted. On the observation deck of the civilian transport, the Meridian Hope, Captain Olivia Reeves watched the colony world of Haven's Rest grow steadily larger. Her reflection was a faint ghost on the reinforced glass, a woman of 38 with a face etched by years of recycled air and impossible choices. Her dark hair was tied back, practical and severe, and her gray eyes held the quiet intensity of someone whose eyes witnessed the full spectrum of human nature, from its brightest glories to its darkest depths. For 15 years, she'd been the lifeline of this sector, ferrying colonists, supplies, and hope. She knew every anomaly, every asteroid field, every safe harbor from here back to Earth. Standing beside her was her first officer, Thomas Garrett, a young man whose romantic vision of space hadn't yet been hardened by its unforgiving reality. Tall and lanky, with sandy hair that defied regulation, he had a nervous habit of humming old Earth songs. And right now, he was humming. "Tom," Olivia said, her gaze fixed on the approaching planet. "You're doing it again." He stopped abruptly, clearing his throat. "Sorry, Captain." He checked his datapad. "We're receiving standard docking clearance from Haven's Rest. Population 73,000. Primary industries are agriculture and rare mineral extraction. No military presence besides basic colonial defense. Everything looks normal. Normal." Olivia had grown to distrust that word. In her experience, normal was merely the deceptive calm before the catastrophic storm. Down on the surface of Haven's Rest, Director James Holloway was having what should have been an ordinary morning. He sat in his modest office, reviewing crop yields and water reclamation stats, the mundane, vital data that kept 73,000 souls alive on a world never meant for them. At 52, with silver hair and a kind, genuine smile, James had left Earth 2 decades ago. He was searching for a simpler life, a chance to build something meaningful, far from the dense politics of humanity's homeworld. His assistant, Rebecca Wu, knocked on the open door. She was 26, a recent arrival from Earth, armed with advanced degrees and a radiant optimism that James both admired and feared. The galaxy had a cruel way of extinguishing such bright lights. "Director," Rebecca said, her smile faltering slightly, "we're getting some unusual readings from the perimeter sensors. Probably just another asteroid cluster, but I thought you should know." James nodded, pulling up the sensor data. He stared at the screen, his fingers hovering over the keyboard, frozen. The readings weren't asteroids. They were ships. A fleet of them. "Rebecca," he said, his voice tight, "initiate Communication Protocol 7. Contact the Galactic Council representative immediately." "Sir?" "Now, please." The urgency in his tone sent her scurrying away. James rose and walked to his window, gazing out at the settlement. Children played in the central plaza. Farmers headed to the fields. Engineers tended to the atmospheric processors, the very machines that made this life possible. It was all so beautifully, terrifyingly normal. High above, in the cold darkness, Fleet Commander Kratos of the Vorthian Armada observed Haven's Rest on his flagship's tactical display. The Vorthians were a proud warrior species, their empire forged in strength and conquest. Kratos was a giant, even by their standards, nearly 4 meters tall, his body a canvas of ceremonial scars, marking his many victories. His amber eyes held no trace of mercy. "Status," he growled to his tactical officer. "The colony is undefended, Commander. No orbital platforms, no military vessels in range. Our scouts confirm only basic defensive systems. This will be over quickly." Kratos gave a slow, deliberate nod. The Galactic Council had issued its warnings. That meddling Ambassador Therion had spoken of humanity's potential, but Kratos had studied the humans. He'd reviewed their biology, their technology, their short, unremarkable galactic history. They were soft, weak. They possessed no natural weapons, no enhanced physiology, nothing that could challenge a species forged in the crushing gravity of a predator world. The Council protected them out of sentimentality, clinging to some outdated ideal. But Kratos knew the galaxy's true law. The strong take what they need, and the weak either adapt or perish. It was the natural order. "Commence the operation," Kratos commanded. "Target their communications first. Isolate them. Then we broadcast our terms. They will surrender, or they will be removed. Either outcome is acceptable." The Vorthian fleet, 47 warships strong, began its descent. They moved with the chilling confidence of apex predators who had never known a true threat. Down below, Director James Holloway received confirmation that his message was sent. It would take 7 hours to reach the nearest human military base. 2 days to reach Earth. As he watched the Vorthian ships streak across his sky like malevolent falling stars, he made a decision that would save thousands. "Colony-wide alert," he announced into the emergency broadcast system. "This is Director Holloway. We are experiencing a hostile contact situation. Initiate Protocol Nightfall immediately. I repeat, Protocol Nightfall. Stay in your homes. Protect your families. Help is coming." Aboard the Meridian Hope, Captain Olivia Reeves saw the Vorthian fleet materialize on her sensors, and a cold dread seized her. She had 700 civilians on her ship, families, children, all trusting her with their lives. "Tom," she said, her voice a pillar of calm amidst the rising fear, "plot a course away from Haven's Rest, maximum burn, and send a priority distress signal on all human military frequencies. Captain, we're supposed to deliver these colonists. Their families are down there waiting." Olivia turned to face him, and in her eyes, Thomas saw the grim calculus of survival. She wasn't running. She was ensuring there would be a witness, someone left to tell the tale of what was about to unfold. "Do it now, Tom." As the Meridian Hope veered away, its engines flaring to life, Olivia watched the Vorthian ships descend upon the helpless colony. She saw the first silent, brilliant flashes of weapons fire light up the void, and she whispered a prayer for the people below, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, was listening. The Vorthians believed they were conquering a defenseless farming outpost. They had no idea they had just made the gravest mistake in their species' long and violent history. They had failed to understand the one defining characteristic of humanity that no biological study could ever reveal. Humans didn't forgive, and they never, ever forgot. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more tales from the edge of the galaxy. The first bombardment lasted exactly 17 minutes. Director James Holloway counted every single second from the reinforced shelter beneath the administration building. He listened to the muffled thunder above as Vorthian plasma cannons ripped through the colony's infrastructure. The lights flickered with each impact, and dust rained down from the concrete ceiling. Around him, 43 people huddled in the darkness, their faces lit only by the pale glow of emergency panels. Rebecca Wu sat beside him. Her earlier optimism had been replaced by something harder, something James recognized because he had felt it himself when the universe first showed him its cruelty. When the bombardment finally stopped, the silence that followed was almost worse than the noise. James activated his communicator, connecting to the other shelter nodes spread throughout the colony. One by one, shelter captains reported in. Casualties were surprisingly light. The colony's emergency plan, Protocol Nightfall, had worked. The colonists had scattered to their designated positions with the practiced efficiency of people who had drilled for this moment, even though most had prayed it would never come. "They're landing ground forces," Rebecca said, her eyes fixed on the sensors of her portable terminal. 27 dropships. Estimated force of 5,000 soldiers. James nodded slowly. 5,000 Vorthian warriors against 73,000 civilians. The math was brutal, but that wasn't what truly worried him. What worried him was the radio silence from orbit. The Vorthians had destroyed their main communications array, but the colony had backups, hidden systems the invaders didn't know about. Those systems were broadcasting on emergency frequencies, desperately telling anyone who would listen what was happening on their world. The question was whether anyone would arrive in time. 300 kilometers above Haven's Rest, Captain Olivia Reeves brought the Meridian Hope to a full stop. She knew she should keep running, should put as much distance between her ship and the invasion as possible. But she couldn't tear her eyes from her sensors, couldn't stop seeing the Vorthian ships in orbit, couldn't stop thinking about the families below who had no one coming to help them. Thomas Garrett stood beside her, his face pale but determined. "Captain, I'm reading multiple distress signals from the surface. They're using the old military encryption codes. Someone down there knows what they're doing." "How long until the nearest human military response?" Olivia asked, her voice tight. 6 hours and 42 minutes to the patrol group at Checkpoint Zeta. 2 days and 8 hours to the main fleet at Earth. 6 hours. Olivia stared at the tactical display, her mind racing through 1,000 possibilities. The Meridian Hope was a civilian transport, not a warship. She had minimal shields, no weapons beyond point defense systems meant for asteroids, and 700 terrified passengers who were counting on her to get them to safety. But she also had something else. She had spent 15 years in this sector. She knew every ship route, every gravitational anomaly, every trick that pirates and smugglers used to avoid detection. And she had an idea that was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. "Tom," she said, her voice steady, "I need you to trust me." "I always trust you, Captain." "Good, because we're about to do something incredibly stupid." On the surface of Haven's Rest, Vorthian Commander Kratos walked through the main plaza of the colony, his heavy boots crushing the delicate flowers that the humans had planted there. His soldiers moved through the settlement with brutal efficiency, herding colonists from their homes and shelters. The humans came quietly, which pleased Kratos. He had expected resistance, perhaps even violence from a species the Galactic Council seemed so concerned about. Instead, he found only frightened civilians who understood when they were beaten. Director James Holloway was brought before him in chains. The human was small, barely reaching Kratos' chest, and he looked exactly like what he was, an administrator, not a warrior. Kratos felt a surge of contempt. This was the species the Council protected so carefully? "I am Commander Kratos of the Vorthian Armada," he announced, his voice amplified across the plaza. "This world now belongs to the Vorthian Empire. You will be relocated to work camps where your labor will serve our people. Resist, and you will be eliminated. Comply, and you will be treated with the efficiency that our empire is known for." James looked up at the massive alien warrior, and when he spoke, his voice carried clearly in the cold air. "You've made a terrible mistake, Commander." Kratos laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Your communications are destroyed. Your defenses are non-existent. You have nothing but words, human. What mistake have I made? You attacked us without understanding who we are." "I understand perfectly," Kratos sneered. "You are weak. Your bodies require constant environmental support. You have no natural weapons. You are prey animals who somehow learn to use tools." He leaned down, bringing his scarred face close to James. "The Council has made you soft with their protection. But protection ends when strength arrives." James met his gaze without flinching. "The Council doesn't protect us because we're weak, Commander. They protect you from us." Before Kratos could respond, one of his tactical officers approached quickly, speaking in the harsh Vorthian language. Kratos listened, and his expression shifted from contempt to confusion, then to outright disbelief. "What is this?" he demanded, switching back to the common tongue. "One of your civilian ships has entered an asteroid field near the fourth moon. My sensors show it's heading directly toward my orbital fleet." A cold smile touched James's lips. "That would be Captain Reeves. She's probably angry. One unarmed transport against my armada? This is suicide." "Maybe," James replied calmly. "Or maybe she knows something you don't. In the asteroid field surrounding Haven's Rest's fourth moon, Captain Olivia Reeves was performing the most dangerous flying of her career. The Meridian Hope weaved between tumbling rocks, some as small as shuttles, others as large as cities. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, and beside her, Thomas called out trajectories and clearances with machine-like efficiency. "Captain, a Vorthian fleet is moving to intercept," Thomas said, his voice strained. "3 cruisers breaking orbit." "Perfect," Olivia said, a grim focus in her eyes. "Tom, activate the mining charges we picked up at the last station. All of them." "Captain, those are for asteroid prospecting, not combat. I know exactly what they're for." "Deploy them on my mark. Time detonation for 30 seconds. Olivia watched her sensors, her gaze locked on the Vorthian cruisers entering the asteroid field in pursuit. They were faster than our ship, better armed, but they were also arrogant. They thought they were chasing a frightened civilian vessel. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap. "Mark." The Meridian Hope released its cargo of mining charges, dozens of small explosives designed to break apart asteroids for mineral extraction. They scattered through the field, attaching to the tumbling rocks with magnetic clamps. Olivia didn't wait to see them explode. She pushed her engines to maximum burn, racing deeper into the field, using the asteroids as cover. Behind her, the charges detonated simultaneously. The asteroids they were attached to fractured, sending thousands of rock fragments spraying in all directions at incredible speeds. This deadly shrapnel cloud tore through the Vorthian cruisers like paper, overwhelming their shields and puncturing their hulls. One cruiser exploded immediately in a flash of white light. The other 2 began tumbling out of control, their engines dead, their crews struggling to survive in the vacuum of space. On the Meridian Hope, the passengers felt the ship shake violently as debris bounced off their shields. Some screamed. Others prayed. But they all survived. Thomas stared at his captain with something approaching awe. "That was insane." "That was necessary," Olivia replied, her knuckles white on the controls. "And it bought us time. How long until the patrol group arrives?" 5 hours and 38 minutes. 5 hours. Olivia looked at her sensor display, at the remaining Vorthian ships in orbit, at the colony below where 73,000 people were waiting for someone to save them. She had destroyed 3 enemy cruisers with mining charges and clever flying, but that left 44 warships still in the fight. She needed to keep them distracted. She needed to make them angry. She needed to make them make mistakes. "Tom," she said, her voice now filled with a newfound steel, "broadcast this on all Vorthian military frequencies. I want them to hear it clearly." "What message, Captain?" Olivia smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who had spent 15 years learning how to survive in the darkness between stars. A woman who had just discovered that she was capable of so much more than she'd ever imagined. "Tell them that if they want to conquer human colonies, they're going to have to go through every single one of us first. Tell them that we don't surrender. Tell them that we're coming for them, and we're bringing everything we have." The message transmitted across the void, reaching every Vorthian ship, reaching Commander Kratos on the surface as he stood over his captive. And in those words, in that defiant declaration from a single civilian captain in an unarmed transport, the Vorthians heard something that made them pause. They heard humanity's true voice for the very first time. And it was not the voice of prey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one. The hours that followed were the longest of Director James Holloway's life. He sat with the other colonists in the plaza, surrounded by Vorthian soldiers who grew more agitated as reports filtered down from orbit. Commander Kratos paced like a caged predator, barking orders into his communicator, his earlier confidence eroding with each passing minute. The humans watched in silence, and in that silence was something the Vorthians were only beginning to recognize. It wasn't fear. It was patience. Rebecca Wu sat beside James, her hands bound but her spirit unbroken. She watched a Vorthian soldier standing guard nearby, saw how his grip on his weapon had tightened, how his eyes kept darting to the sky. "They're scared," she whispered. James nodded slightly. "They're starting to understand?" In orbit, the Vorthian fleet was in chaos. Commander Kratos had ordered 6 more ships to hunt down the Meridian Hope, but Captain Reeves had led them on a wild chase through gravitational wells and debris fields, using every trick she had learned in 15 years of flying. 2 more Vorthian vessels had been damaged by debris she'd cleverly maneuvered them into, and the others had lost her signal entirely. One civilian transport was tying up nearly a quarter of his fleet. But that wasn't what truly worried the Vorthian commander. What worried him was the silence from the Galactic Council. He had sent multiple communications demanding they recognize his conquest, demanding they acknowledge the Vorthian Empire's right to expand. Every message had been met with the same response: a simple recording of Ambassador Therian's warning, played back without comment. "Commander," his tactical officer approached carefully, "we're detecting multiple jump signatures at the edge of the system. Human military vessels. Estimated arrival in 17 minutes. Kratos felt something cold settle in his chest. 17 minutes. The human response had come faster than any intelligence report had predicted. How many ships? 12. Frigate class. They're broadcasting a challenge on all frequencies. 12 frigates against 44 of our warships? They're fools." But even as he said it, Kratos remembered Ambassador Therian's words. "They do not break when pressured. They adapt. They learn. They endure." On the bridge of the human frigate Relentless, Commander Patricia Cole reviewed the tactical situation with the calm focus of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire career. She was 45, with steel-gray hair cut military short and eyes that had seen combat in 3 different sectors. Behind her stood her crew, and behind them, in 11 other frigates, were 5,000 human soldiers who had been training for exactly this scenario. "Communications broadcast this to the Vorthian fleet," Patricia said, her voice steady. "This is Commander Patricia Cole of the United Earth Defense Force. You have attacked a human colony in violation of Galactic Council law. You have 15 minutes to withdraw your forces and leave this system. If you refuse, we will remove you by force. This is your only warning." The response came quickly. Kratos' face appeared on her view screen, his amber eyes burning with anger. "You threaten me with 12 ships? I have an armada." Patricia didn't smile, but something in her expression made several of her bridge crew suppress grins. "Commander Kratos, you're looking at the situation incorrectly. You don't have an armada. You have 44 ships that are about to learn a very expensive lesson about why the Galactic Council protects humanity. Your arrogance will cost you everything. No, Commander. Your ignorance already has." The transmission ended, and Patricia turned to her tactical officer. "Deploy the drones. Pattern Omega. Let's show them what we've learned from living on a death world." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human frigates didn't charge in blindly. They didn't rely on superior firepower or advanced technology. Instead, they used strategy that had been refined through thousands of years of human warfare. Tactics born from a species that had to be clever to survive on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. The drones were small, barely larger than fighters, but they were fast and they were smart. They swarmed the Vorthian fleet like the pack hunters the humans had learned to fear, and eventually domesticate on Earth. They targeted sensors, communication arrays, weapon systems. They didn't try to destroy the Vorthian ships outright. They blinded them, deafened them, made them stumble in the darkness. And while the Vorthian fleet fought the drones, the human frigates moved with surgical precision, targeting the command vessels, the ships that coordinated the Armada's movements. Patricia Cole had studied Vorthian military doctrine for years. She knew they relied on strict hierarchical command structures. Cut off the head, and the body would flounder. It took 38 minutes. When it was over, 17 Vorthian warships were disabled, drifting in orbit with dead engines and shattered communications. The rest were retreating, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. On the surface of Haven's Rest, Commander Kratos watched his fleet fall apart through his tactical display. Around him, his soldiers stood uncertain. Their weapons still pointed at the colonists, but their attention divided between their prisoners and the sky. For the first time in his long military career, Kratos felt something he had never experienced before. He felt fear. James Holloway stood slowly, his bound hands held before him. "Commander, I'm going to give you the same advice that Ambassador Therion gave you. Withdraw now. Take your soldiers and leave this world. If you do, this ends here." Kratos turned to him, his massive form trembling with rage and something else, something that looked almost like confusion. "How? You were defenseless. Your technology is inferior. Your bodies are weak. How did you do this?" James looked at the Vorthian commander, and when he spoke, his voice carried to every human in the plaza, to every colonist who had spent the last hours fearing for their lives. "You studied our biology, Commander. You studied our technology. But you never studied what makes us human. We come from a world that has tried to kill us in every way imaginable. Predators, diseases, weather, even the very ground beneath our feet. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we refused to give up. We survived because when something knocked us down, we got back up. Every single time. He took a step forward, and remarkably, Kratos took a step back. We learned to work together because alone we die. We learned to be clever because strength alone isn't enough. We learned to adapt because the only other option was extinction. And we learned something else, Commander. We learned that the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the predator with the biggest teeth or the sharpest claws. It's the prey that decides to fight back. In the sky above, the Meridian Hope emerged from behind the fourth moon, battered but intact. Captain Olivia Reeves had kept the Vorthian fleet busy for 5 hours, with nothing but an unarmed transport and sheer determination. She had proven that one human, given enough motivation and creativity, could stand against an armada. The human frigates descended toward the colony, their weapons trained on the Vorthian ground forces. But they didn't fire. They waited. Commander Patricia Cole's voice echoed across the settlement. "Vorthian forces, you are surrounded. Your fleet is defeated. Your mission has failed. Surrender your weapons, and you will be treated according to Galactic Council protocols. Resist, and we will show you why every species in this galaxy fears what humanity is capable of when you threaten our families." Kratos looked at his soldiers, saw the defeat in their eyes, saw them looking to him for orders that he no longer knew how to give. He thought about his empire, about the 12 star systems they had conquered, about the pride of his species. And he realized that all of it meant nothing if his people died, here on this distant farming colony, because he had been too arrogant to listen to a warning. He dropped his weapon. Around him, 5,000 Vorthian soldiers did the same. As human Marines moved in to secure the prisoners, as medics rushed to treat the wounded, as Director James Holloway embraced Rebecca Wu and felt the weight of responsibility finally lift from his shoulders, something remarkable happened throughout the colony. The humans didn't celebrate. They didn't gloat. They simply began the work of rebuilding, of healing, of moving forward. Because that was what humans did. They endured, they adapted, they survived, and they never, ever forgot who they were. Commander Patricia Cole met Director Holloway in the plaza as the last Vorthian soldier was secured. She saluted him, a gesture of respect between two people who had both done what was necessary to protect their people. Director, Earth sends its regards. Are your people safe? James looked around at the colonists emerging from shelters, at families reuniting, at children who would grow up knowing that when darkness came, humanity had stood together and prevailed. We are now, Commander. Thank you. Patricia nodded, then looked up at the sky where the Vorthian ships were withdrawing under escort. This won't be the last time someone tests us. The galaxy is watching. They're trying to understand what makes humans different. Let them watch, James said quietly. Let them learn. We're not different because we're stronger or smarter. We're different because we choose to be. Every single day, we choose hope over despair, courage over fear, unity over division. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us dangerous to anyone who thinks they can break us. Far above, in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Therian watched the reports from Haven's Rest with ancient, knowing eyes. Around him, representatives from 200 worlds sat in stunned silence. The Vorthian Empire, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, had been defeated by 12 human frigates and a civilian transport captain who refused to run away. Let this be a lesson, Therian said softly, his voice carrying through the chamber. Humanity is not protected because they are weak. They are protected because they are humanity. And when you push them, when you threaten their families, when you make them choose between surrender and resistance, they will choose resistance every single time. Not because they are violent, not because they seek war, but because they understand something that many of us have forgotten. The greatest strength is not in never falling. It is in rising every time you fall. The council chamber remained silent, but in that silence was understanding, respect, and for some species, a newfound fear of the small, fragile creatures from the death world called Earth. And on Haven's Rest, as the sun set on a day that would be remembered forever, 73,000 humans went about the business of living, of hoping, of building a future among the stars. Because that was what humans did best. They survived. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.